So now I'm ready to continue this reading. Now, whether I decide to stick with these cards in particular for the entire debate, I don't know. I'm just going to feel it out. When I did part one, I felt that's how I was going to do. It's just going to be, Wheel of Fortune versus Six of Cups, and then, draw along. But I can see myself wanting to do a little refresher. Maybe halfway through the debate, it seems at the very least like they're covering quite a lot of things, and it's a very long thing, and people change every second of the day. So after 5 hours, it might be relevant to draw new cards. But for now, we'll stick with the Wheel of Fortune, Ethan Klein, and Six of Cups for Hasan Piker. And in the Oracle deck, Ethan, it has the blue dog, and Hasan has the insects.
Genocide.
Well, we seem to be coming at this from two different angles, which is great, right? So let me ask you this. Hold on, you said it's my turn to ask, so let me do that. Is it my turn to ask a question or what?
That there's a genocide. You already recognize that Israel is committing a genocide.
I can care about two things, Hasan. It's very important to acknowledge that.
Don't you think?
I can care about two things, my friend.
Incredibly narrow framework
very
surrounding
easy.
Your own personal feelings.
I'm not that smart, but I can care about two things.
Okay, no,
even if one is more urgent than the other.
You think your own personal feelings, born out of your misunderstandings, is more important?
Did I say that? I said one is more urgent than the other, referring to the genocide.
Oh, okay. So you recognize that
Hasan,
the genocide is a more urgent
Hasan,
issue.
please let me ask a question.
Almost all of your commentary surrounding this issue on talking about your own personal feelings and how you've been wronged by people.
Very good. Let me ask you. So you claimed
Wait, can you answer that question?
No, Hasan, you asked your question. It's my turn. I talked about how gracious you were, man. What happened?
Wait, but
I said you're so gracious. You're going to let me ask you a question. What happened?
Does that make sense?
Don't make me take it back. All right, let me ask you a question.
Sense to you?
Hold on to that. Ask me after this. You defended Frogan's use of the Sabra tier list. What was your opinion on that?
Oh my God.
Go ahead.
I think that the Sabra hummus tier list is absolutely insane to consider anti-Semitic, and most people have already laughed about it, despite the fact that it was very damaging in terms of deplatforming a bunch of content creators that participated in this, egged on by yourself, by the way.
Yes. With pleasure.
And yeah, it's not.
It's insane.
Even remotely.
Okay.
It's not even remotely anti-Semitic.
Very
it's
good.
Like
let me ask you a
the
question.
Cracker Band that Twitch capitulated on.
So let me follow up with this. Have you seen the thumbnail?
The thumbnail?
Yes, that's what I said. This is the thumbnail that's still up. Now, let me ask you this, Hasan. Here's Frogan's thumbnail for the Sabra hummus tier list. In the F tier is me and Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro is not in the tier list. He has never explored or used. Why do you think Ben Shapiro is on the F tier?
Ethan?
Whoa, answer the question.
Again.
What, you're dodging?
I'm not iDubbbz.
Oh, but you can't make value judgments suddenly on your friends who you've spent all this time defending.
No, because I don't care.
Well, I do.
I don't. Like,
I think it's great you don't care. Why is Ben Shapiro there?
I don't know. I don't care. Probably because he's also
because he's Jewish?
Fucking, what?
Because it's the most most prominent Jewish creators on YouTube?
Do you think Ben Shapiro's Judaism is the reason as to why he would be on this?
100% without a doubt, yes.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Take your time. I know it's a lot to process.
Okay. Yeah, this is a lot to process.
Yeah, I know, man. It's tough. You really don't know what to say because it looks pretty bad.
No, because it's so fucking stupid.
Well, tell me then.
You look kind of dumb
so why is Ben there?
You look kind of insane.
Okay, very good.
That's
why
why
is Ben
I'm having a hard time. Like, I don't know why fucking Frogan made this thumbnail. And
why is Ben there?
I don't have any issue with this thumbnail.
Why is Ben there?
Because he's a prominent defender of Israel.
You're quick to say that Jews aren't the only Zionists, right? So why is Ben Shapiro, of all the people in the world who are conservatives, who are Zionists, Christian Zionists, why Ben Shapiro? Me and Ben Shapiro and F tier, the two most prominent Jewish creators on YouTube? That's a coincidence just like the swastika, huh?
Ethan,
these are two cosmic coincidences. They're really stacking up.
The tier list that you're talking about, first of all, the tier list that we're talking about was literally designed by a Jewish content creator who you advocated to ban, and he got banned.
Very good, and I'm glad he did. He definitely deserved it.
Jew. You called him a token Jew.
And I still stand by that. The man is just fucking. Yeah.
So you get to draw swastikas on PewDiePie, but Rafi can't say that there is a tier list here where Sabra
This is Frogan's tier list. This is her.
Is the lowest. The Sabra hummus, liking Sabra hummus, is the lowest tier.
Okay, I think this would be a good point to assess. So for this. So far, I had summoned the I had drawn the Temperance card for Ethan, and also the Four of Pentacles. I think Ethan is struggling with balance. You know, funny, the Temperance card keeps showing up. There is this, these guys are very alike in my view. These guys are very intertwined with each other's lives. This matters so much to the two of them. And the way they express it is very different. I think Ethan expresses it in a way much more explicitly than Hasan. Hasan, I think, wants to look like he doesn't care. But otherwise, it matters nearly as much to him. These guys are very similar. And for Hasan's drawings, we got the inverse Five of Pentacles. So we'll do that, and then, of course, the inverse Ten of Wands. And from that, I think on this issue, one is Ethan is refusing to let go of something that is probably not that big of a deal. Yet at the same time, Hasan's main issue is that he really just doesn't understand how much Ethan, to some degree, is of a sympathetic character, and that maybe he should be a little bit more open to hearing out Ethan's concerns, and addressing them properly without dismissing them. It doesn't mean that Ethan is correct to be upset about this. The way I'm looking at the cards is that Ethan is being too dramatic, maybe, over this situation. He cares a little bit too much over this tier list. And Hasan, on the other hand, doesn't have the ability to address Ethan's concerns and is more interested in just completely dismissing any possible concern. And that is the way that we saw it originally as well. And that's how I would describe Hasan's general defense mechanisms. It's very much like it simply doesn't matter. Typically, you would see this from like a teenage right-winger, and I could see Hasan being more like somewhat of a teenage edgelord. I don't know what his, cultural thing is, but I know he's into Cumtown. He's into probably a lot of 4chan-like humor. I mean, he's on Twitch. He's playing Fortnite. These are intermingling cultures, the the edgelord people and everyone else. The internet is very much a communication within edginess and memes. So that also creates this dismissive attitude about people's emotions. And it's weird that Hasan, being someone who's so incredibly on the left, that's something that he probably is unaware of how important it is that he's able to, be better at that kind of empathy for someone like Ethan. Hasan, to some degree, I mean, for 5 hours, if they're going to debate for 5 hours, I imagine, and especially under these conditions, I mean, I can't imagine a serious person debating with Ethan for 5 hours. With the way that Ethan is talking to them. Like the Sam Cedar debate, for example. I mean, Sam Cedar couldn't do 2 hours. I think he only did 1 hour. I think it's simply because Ethan was just way too combative. I don't know if that was a hard limit initially. But, I don't see someone like Sam Cedar, someone who's more invested in political debates and addressing points appropriately, being able to tolerate Ethan's dominance in the conversation. Hasan, I think, cares deeply about somehow convincing Ethan he's right, and subconsciously I think it's because he wants Ethan to like him. And I think Ethan feels very hurt by Hasan and could never like Hasan if Hasan is unable to properly address his feelings. And this is probably the conundrum between them right now.
Ben Shapiro.
And the highest tier is being able to get a Habibi pass. You, as a Jew, get to determine what other Jews are able to do. You're the Pope of the Jews.
I'm not determining what they can do, but this is Frogan's bit. This is her stage. This is her bit. I mean, you can say the Jewish dude is the fall guy and did everything, but that's not true.
So you get to draw swastikas, but Ravi can't even say Sabra Hummus is dog shit.
He can say whatever he wants. I'm not
Also, he
criticizing.
can't.
By the way,
You're gonna
you think
call
that
him a
my
covered
criticism
Jew
is
for
that he doesn't like Sabra hummus? Are you being serious right now? By the way, is that a beat? Hold on, what are you drinking?
It's a Dr. Pepper cream
Isn't that
soda.
who owns that?
I don't know, but it's not on the BDS
Are you
national
sure?
BDS list.
We'll double check.
Yes, I'm 100% sure.
Okay, we'll double check that. It's not about Sabra hummus, and like let's not be obtuse.
Actually, the BDS one is actually pretty funny too, because like you've been, you consistently talk about how like I drink Diet Coke or whatever. When that fan came up to me and said stop drinking Diet Coke, it was not on the Palestinian National Committee's official BDS list.
Yes, it was.
And ever since it has been on the official BDS list,
You're lying.
I have not drank Diet Coke or purchased any Diet Cokes at all.
You're lying. It was on the list.
Wait, what is?
What? Yeah, it was on the list. You're lying.
What was on the list?
Coke.
Yes, it was put on the list, and I stopped purchasing Coke, and I stopped drinking Diet Coke.
You said, you know what's funny? You told her.
Because I think it's like.
You remember
not
what you told her, son?
significant.
You remember? Yeah, you remember what you told her? You said, "I'll just put it in a cup."
Yeah, no, I was joking with her because I thought that it was a ridiculous request at the time because it wasn't on the Palestinian National Committee's official boycott, divestment, and sanctions list. Ethan.
Okay. It's not about Sabra hummus, just so you know. Like, let's not be silly.
Wait, what is it about?
It's about what's Sabra means a Jew born in Israel. It's an Israeli company. Everybody knows it's like considered like Israeli hummus. It's been on the BDS list. Everybody knows the connotations
terrible.
of Sabra hummus, right?
It's
Nobody.
so doo-doo.
Yeah,
It
I
is
don't like
doo-doo
Sabra
hummus.
hummus either. But we're not talking about hummus. What I don't like is
great.
anti-Semitism
Okay.
perpetuated by your friends and swept by you. Now, why is Ben Shapiro in the F tier? That's a cosmic coincidence. Okay, let's move on. Very good.
Ethan,
Go ahead. Next question.
I'm not Frogan,
I know it's.
and I don't know
I know.
why.
How can I make value judgments on my friends I've been defending for 2 years?
Also,
Who can say?
there is a tier list in front of me, and it seems like a bunch of people, both
Ben
Jewish
Shapiro and me are in the F
on
tier.
the Loves Sabra tier list.
You're looking at the end. I'm looking at the thumbnail, bro. I'm talking about the thumbnail.
I know,
right?
but I first of all, again, I'm making inferences about editorial decisions that other people have made. I'm just simply speculating at this point.
Sure.
But you know, it's a.
Are you not embarrassed by this
joke.
armpit hair? It's so cringy, bro. It's like so weird. I'm glad you changed that finally. On a separate note,
What?
I find it just so weird and bizarre that this was your thumbnail for so long. Also, ironically, wearing a Rolex hat, which is like probably the symbol of capitalist excess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a
Cool,
free Rolex
dude.
hat from a friend of mine. I still wear it every
Yeah,
now
and
and
you're
then.
so. Oh wow, who knew? So anyway, Ben Shapiro was
I'm so-
accidentally in the F
What
tier.
does this have to do with anything? What's going on, man?
Yeah, I know.
What's
It's
happening?
confusing. It's very confusing for you. It's like a car crash, I'm
There's
sure.
So why do you think there's a
so
Jewish
this is a
man in the
cosmic
A
mistake.
tier
Let's move on.
the tier list? If you think that it's like all about anti-Semitism and
Do you think that this is at least a bad coincidence?
No, I don't.
Well,
I
that's
really don't.
fantastic.
No, I don't think it's a bad coincidence at all. I think you're trying to find with a fine-tooth comb like any
Of course.
incidents.
The
that
Jewish
even
man
come
is
across as
crazy.
remotely
He sees
anti-Semitic,
anti-Semitism
and you're having a
everywhere.
really hard time.
These are
you
just
want my answer?
cosmic
If you want my perspective,
mistakes.
I'm telling you. If you want my perspective, I'm giving it to you. I think genuinely, at a time when there is unprecedented levels
Yes,
of
I know. We
open,
can't talk about anything else. That's very convenient for you.
At a time when there's unprecedented levels of out and about anti-Semitism with incredibly prominent, oftentimes right-wing conservative figureheads actively talking about Jews, okay, in deeply anti-Semitic fashion, you have lasered in on people that you can't even actually catch, quote unquote, dead to rights because they're not anti-Semitic.
Well, they're not
And
wearing a
you
shirt
want
that says
to
"I
make
hate
them-
Jews," but
it
they're walking
seems to
around
me- it
swastikas
seems to me
and
like
doing
you-
tier lists with Jews on the bottom. I mean, that's as
It
close as you
seems
can
to
pretty
me
much fucking
like
get without them
you-
just saying "I hate Jewish people."
Ethan, it seems to me like
And I
you
think you're
want
acting
them
really silly and
to be
obtuse right now. The
anti-Semitic.
guy who's all about microaggressions and understanding the perspective of minorities and stuff, telling a Jewish man that he's hallucinating anti-Semitism
Yes,
and won't even
I'm doing
concede
that.
that this looks bad. Okay, fantastic.
No, you're hallucinating anti-Semitism in this circumstance.
Very good.
I'm not saying anti-Semitism is not a prominent fixture of American politics.
Very good.
I actually do think that anti-Semitism has exploded
brave
in
of you to say.
popularity
Very
in
brave.
American politics, especially. So that's not my point at all. I'm saying you individually right now
So-
wish that these people were anti-Semitic.
I
so you're
really
trying
don't.
to find anything you can hold on to.
It's really not a
But once
stretch,
again,
man.
none of those people are me. So I don't know why.
Let's stop with the
we've
value
devolved
judgment
the
thing. Like you can't make a
conversation
decision. It
away
sounds
from-
stupid as hell, dude.
Wait,
Let me
I
ask-
sound stupid as hell? What?
But when you go, I can't draw. I'm not them.
Okay, so interesting drawings here for this segment of the conversation. Decided to let it run to 3 cards. So with Ethan, started with a 6 of Pentacles, which I don't know how many times that's been drawn. Not too many times, I think. A lot of 6s, however. We've been getting a lot of 6s and even numbers. And then some point reached the 5 of Cups. And then the Four of Swords. I think Ethan is really unaware in this situation of how much this particular issue is not really seen in the common mind the same way that he does. And I think Hasan has an upper hand on this whole thing simply because of that. And, you know, the cards kind of help with that one as well. I mean, he started off with a Knight of Cups. And we also got a lot of cups in this. I mean, there was one point where they both drew cups. I mean, he had 9 of cups. And Ethan had the 5 of... Was it 5 of cups? Yeah. That kind of showed, for me at least, Hasan's advantage in this situation compared to Ethan. And then finishing off with a Queen of Wands, very good for Hasan. You know, funny enough, the question of the sword, a Four of Swords, I would even say, is like the swastika, right? There's 4 equal parts to the swastika that creates it, and it's on a sword. Not, I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence, but I think the reason why it was the last drawn and also happens to be near the end of this conversation is that this particular segment of this entire debate didn't go well for Ethan at all, mostly having to do with the fact that he isn't really in tune with how the perception of a meme-style tier list on the internet, really no one understands why that's a big deal. It requires too much of him having to explain his vast network of thinking in order to come to the conclusion that Hasan has something to answer to when it comes to this tier list. Ethan has some points, but I think Hasan doesn't really see any reason to see Ethan as reasonable, which kind of eclipses the whole sword momentum that Ethan had in the very beginning. Now, how things start, very influential. And, you know, at the very least, this little hiccup in Ethan's moment, who knows how it will go for the rest of the debate. You know, these middle moments, they matter, but they may not explicitly make a huge difference in how the debate goes overall. And I do think Hasan needs to more so embrace when he is victorious or when he's doing well. Maybe find a good way to harness that energy, especially because he's only doing well in the second point, not in the opening with the sword. I mean, they opened with definitions, but that wasn't a real debate. And I kind of feel like Ethan even gained momentum in that intro segment with the definitions. If Hasan could properly harness the energy of this second segment of debating, I think it's very likely that, you know, he could get better momentum for the rest of the debate. Who knows? I don't know. I feel like Ethan is still in charge. I mean, after all, he is the Wheel of Fortune, and I just do not want to change that at the moment. I'm going to hold on to that for as long as it feels right. If that means the entire debate, then that's what it is. Hasan, on the other hand, I mean, he is a 6 of cups. We're getting a lot of cups in this one particular thing. It was in his advantage. It is his moment to shine. Unfortunately, the debate topic itself is such a no one cares about it, which is Ethan's only advantage, is that it's such a who gives a shit type of thing. Ethan not doing well doesn't actually resonate, or it doesn't stick in the minds of people. I think the sword thing gives him momentum. It's also a more interesting thing. It's an image of a swastika that's more of a vibrant topic.
I mean,
I don't know why you're asking me what their genuine decision making.
Why would I want my best friend Ida to be anti-Semitic?
Why
would I want my best friend Ida to be anti-Semitic? Why would I want that? You think I enjoy my friends and people around me being anti-Semitic?
Do you want me to tell you why?
I would love.
I don't think you're gonna like the answer.
Yeah, this is gonna be good. Go ahead.
Okay. You want everyone that has criticized you to be anti-Semitic so that it makes you feel better about your position. It's not your own personal positions that you have explained to people that come across like you're using anti-Semitism as a shield to deflect criticisms against Israel.
This is,
and if they are actually out and about anti-Semites, that'll make you feel a little bit more comfortable, like you won the argument in your mind, and that your community would also finally go, oh yeah, you're right, you're a permanent victim in this situation. But because there's an unimaginable amount of anti-Semitism everywhere online, it comes across as shocking that you laser in on what you...
Isn't that interesting? I mean, like I keep saying, this is clearly these two guys, their biggest, I guess what brings them together and what also makes them hate each other is the fact that they are very similar people. They're riding almost on the same wavelength, but not quite. And in the little differences, in this particular situation especially, I would say like psychologically, or at least explicitly, they're so different, but it all comes from the same place. And so now we're entering this new conversation. I mean, I think it's right about to start. And so I was kind of drawing for that. Yeah. Just seeing how they're moving from this topic to the next one, already things have flipped again. Now Ethan has a little bit more of an advantage, or is probably going to be doing quite well, just because of how Hasan handles conflict. Ethan doesn't handle conflict well either, but he is the Wheel of Fortune. He is the one running the show. Hasan, should possibly have a little bit more of an upper hand, not, in general. Just like, Ethan's flaws should stick out a little bit more. But because he is running things where Hasan fails, it's probably going to be way more intense, way more detrimental.
You perceive are dog whistles when they're very clearly not even dog whistles at all. And I'll give you an example of this. Something that you did that I found very funny was... you tweeted, or you don't tweet, sorry. You Instagram posted about my Theo Von podcast appearance.
Sure did.
My Theo Von podcast appearance where you were like, oh, I can't believe Theo Von didn't actually ask him about his dangerous anti-Semitism or any number of different things in the conversation, including, I think you talked about Rick Scott. Now, we did actually talk. Theo Von and I did actually talk about Rick Scott.
Let's pull that clip up,
I'm sure you didn't see that. No, but hold on. Let me finish. But what I found very strange about that was the fact that Theo Von, and I didn't even know this at the time, the day prior to me, had actually interviewed Candace Owens. I think you and I both agree that Candace Owens is an anti-Semite, right?
I think that he was on that 1-2 punch.
Okay.
Wow, bam!
Do you think...
You hit him with that anti-Semitism, boy.
No, Ethan. As your former podcast co-host, do you think that I am anti-Semitic, one, and if you think I am, do you think I'm as anti-Semitic as Candace Owens?
So, yes, I think you're anti-Semitic at this point. I'm comfortable saying that. Are you as anti... Well, let me finish.
Let me finish. You asked me 2 questions. And let's address
no.
what you think I'm doing that's anti-Semitic.
Hold the phone. You asked me 2 questions together. I'm going to answer both. You said, do you think I'm anti-Semitic? After talking to you so far today, I can say unreservedly yes. I think that you are more anti-Semitic than Candace Owens? No. But I think your form of anti-Semitism is way more destructive and sinister. Candace Owens is outright... Hold on there, Hasan. This is an important question.
You think I'm anti-Semitic now? Because 2 days ago you said I wasn't.
I'm going to answer.
Okay.
Your form of anti-Semitism is way more insidious because it's silent, it's tricky. She's out there just saying what she believes, and I respect her for that. Nick Fuentes is just out there. Nobody knows that what's his stance on Israel. Candace Owens' stance on Israel. But you're tricky. What you do is deny the heritage of Middle Eastern Jews, stuff like that. You accuse them of being always the oppressor, always everything. And by the way, you spent the first part of this debate calling me insane for what I think most people would perceive as blatant, obvious anti-Semitic acts.
I don't think most people would look at what you're doing right now and
let's
think
not worry
about
that.
Let's sign of mental sanity.
Well, we'll have time to poll the audience afterwards. So let's continue.
Okay. All right. Well, look. Going back to the Theo Von situation, and you said I'm anti-Semitic, right? Yesterday you said, or 2 days ago, in the aftermath of the Sam Cedar conversation, you said I'm not anti-Semitic. So what has changed in that process? Is it this conversation that you and I had?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Got it. All right.
Here's the clip, by the way. You accused me of not mentioning that Theo Von did not ask you about Rick Scott. Let's go back and watch the clip.
Because I didn't say.
Bro, you literally look like the dude from Beetlejuice. That's crazy. The small head guy.
Ethan, I use my words very carefully. I said in the Instagram story that you posted. I don't watch your stream that much. I don't You know, I only
In the
see
waiting
like
room?
bits and pieces of
Bro,
it.
that's crazy. Do you see the resemblance?
What?
You're this guy from Beetlejuice. In this photo, you have like the same coat and shit.
Yeah.
Heck,
Yeah, that's you are a comedian.
I sure am, buddy. I see you laughing. All right, anyway. So you accuse me of misrepresenting what happened. Let's play the clip.
Right, $800 billion of Medicare and Medicaid that they want to cut. Mike Johnson goes on stage, says, goes on Caitlin Collins on CNN and says, oh, there's a lot of fraud happening. There's not fraud happening in Medicare and Medicaid on the point of the recipient.
Right.
It's happening on the point of the providers.
Right.
And that's why I got banned recently on Twitch yesterday. Because
Sorry about that one day.
So you just got back.
Yeah, Libs of TikTok was like posting about how I said something.
Wait, what is this?
And they misconstrued it as though it was a call to action to assassinate a sitting
why are you
US
showing me
senator.
this?
Well, you're saying I didn't bring this up, or I'm saying that Theo didn't bring this up. He didn't. You brought it up, framed it in your own way to basically preempt a tough question. Yep.
Ethan, I said on the Instagram story that you posted about me, Dan, can you switch it back to Ethan?
Don't switch it back, Dan. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I'm switching it back.
Okay.
1 second.
All right, thanks, Dan.
I know, man.
This looks ridiculous on
It
my
sure
end.
does,
I'm
buddy.
sorry. Okay. So yeah, this was. And
it's not just because of the video.
The post as well, but the post I was referring to was make sure Theo knows how you feel about hosting a terrorist adjacent content creator, and I believe there was another post about it or something. But again,
I said he was irresponsible to platform you and not ask you difficult questions.
yeah. So the question I have for you once again is like he had Candace Owens on. Like, do you feel like that's a little bit more damaging in terms of spreading potentially anti-Semitic narratives, or do you think that anti-Semitism is when you feel bad personally, and that could be any number of different things that I've done in any given moment?
Yes, I think you were just as bad as her in your own special way, and that's why.
You
and you guys were hitting that same flavor.
Owens
Yes.
on anti-Semitism
Yes.
in my own special way.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Very
All right,
good.
Cool.
Very good. So let me ask you a question. Hasan, can I ask you a question?
Can you now officially not talk about like Frogan or anyone else and tell me why I'm anti-Semitic?
I'm guessing, to me, this Four of Swords drawing has a lot to do with the general anti-Semitism question, the swastika sword. This matters. I think for Hasan in particular, this matters a lot, this swastika sword. I don't mean it matters like to him emotionally. No, it matters more to Ethan emotionally. It affects Ethan, and that's why it matters to Hasan. It's because the swastika sword is important to Ethan. It's probably the main, it's the reason why they started off, and the reason why now we're in the third debate point that's about to end. This swastika sword keeps coming up. We're getting to Four of Swords. That was the last thing I drew. I'm just gonna put it up right here just so you see. Along with I believe it was an inverse world. Inverse world and the Four of Swords being the closer, the inverse world starting things. I think Hasan desperately wants to get out of this fucking swastika sword conversation, because I think it really is like the catalyst here. It is the ultimate fucking thing that if he can't address this appropriately, Ethan now views him as an actual anti-Semite, and he's saying it whether Hasan really is an anti-Semite or not. Oh, and I should get into the temperance, of course. I would see that sort of in this case at least. First of all, temperance is coming up. How many times has the temperance card shown up at this point? Part 1 and now part 2. This is very important that the two of these guys are able to figure out how to compromise. I guess I wouldn't be surprised if I got the temperance card every time I drew for debates, because in some way that is a very important thing, right? So maybe, but I think the problem in this debate compared to maybe other debates where, I watch a lot of debates between Israel and Palestine, and they're people with very different goals, very different wavelengths. They're not similar, and therefore I would probably draw. I don't know. I'm not gonna actually try to like predict the future here and what I would draw between Douglas Murray and Dave Smith. I think what really we're seeing, because the Four of Swords came up, and of course, there was a One of Swords for Hasan in some way, which in conjunction with these other things, I think the only way he's going to be able to move on from this topic and be able to really properly address other things and maybe get Ethan in a gotcha moment that wouldn't just go right back to you're an anti-Semite, you have a swastika sword, and you refuse to address it, you refuse to empathize with me. If he can't really like address that, then I think Ethan is just really going to really hate him and genuinely think he's a Nazi. And I think Hasan, to some degree, understands what's at stake here and on a psychological level. We all don't want people to think we're legitimate bigots, racists, unless maybe, we're crazy. But even legitimate bigots and racists don't want people to think they're legitimate bigots and racists, especially people who don't want to be bigots. They just maybe lose their way and lean into it at times. A lot of those people don't want to be bigots. Bigotry is kind of like, it's a group mentality that is just also very hate-inspired and based in economic scarcity and all kinds of things. It takes advantage of a part of our mind that is just an evolutionary advantage that, didn't obstruct human civilization being able to breed and continue and exist and all those things. So we have the capacity to be bigoted, and it can come out in weird ways. And if you're a person who doesn't want to be a bigot, you're probably more resistant to actually thinking you're a bigot. And, it takes therapy. It takes all kinds of different avenues to really appropriately address bigotry when you notice it in yourself. And whether Hasan is truly an anti-Semite or not, I think naturally it would be difficult for him to accept it so quickly. I know when I address certain bigotries, like legitimate bigotries that I have with like a therapist and with people that are very close to me, who I feel like are willing to just talk about those kinds of things. And I address those things with a sense of like how I'm trying to critique myself and equalize my perspective on these types of things. And it's interesting. It's like and I think progressive-minded people, they start thinking more about like, well, I can be bigoted in this way, or I could be bigoted in that way. I could be bigoted towards this group of people who I didn't even know existed when I was not even caring about bigotry at all, when I wasn't progressive or whatever. All kinds of individuals who suffer in their own ways and are maybe like subjugated in certain ways, and it matters to you more. We're all on a different, life path, or we're all on a different level when it comes to how defensive we get when it's brought to our attention. And you have to imagine, if you're an influencer, if you're someone whose life is on public display, your defense mechanisms are going to kick in way more harshly because so much more is at stake. Oop. You know what? I think... Yeah, fuck it. I think Hasan is going through something now. I mean, I do really feel that way when it comes to this Four of Swords and anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is a difficult thing to be accused of, to address in some way, to see the nuances of how you could possibly start acting as an anti-Semite without even knowing it. And once again, I'm not saying that this is for sure what's going on in Hasan's mind, but I think it's worth looking into the psychological, how do people naturally react to things with all these other variables in consideration. And regardless of whether he truly is an anti-Semite or not, he doesn't seem to have the tools necessary to be able to address it properly. And I do think that to me, that is usually in conjunction with some level of bigotry. However, I don't think, with all things equal, that Hasan would be an anti-Semite. Like, he wouldn't ever actually think that that's an appropriate route for society to just, like, adapt anti-Semitic principles. And I think that's, at the very least, true. And whether he has some level of anti-Semitism in him because of the political situation and the fact that he is a public figure and he has to entrench himself in these worlds, he's witnessing how Zionists argue. And, you know, if you're on the Palestinian side, it's incredibly infuriating how Zionists argue. And there's this constant use of the term anti-Semitic to like hush people who are critical of Zionism or of Israel. It can be difficult for anyone to suppress hostility that starts rising up. You'd like to think that your hostility that you're leaning into is just towards Israelis. You know, the Zionists, they constantly, when they tell you that Israel and Jewishness are the same, or statistically, like, Israel is it's populated by Jewish people, and there is a Jewish culture that is reinforced by it. So your mind, subconsciously, is doing the association, whether you like it or not, whether you personally would actually think that way. Your mind is still creating that association because that is how the positive side already portrays itself. People who are like Jewish, who are against Israel, a lot of their family members are likely pro-Israel, and they have to struggle with that. It's probably a very difficult thing ingrained into the culture, and Hasan, whether his principles are strong enough to be against bigotry as a whole, because that's the progressive way, that's the leftist way, the mind in the background is still creating those associations. And it's going to seep out in certain ways, and he may not be currently equipped to handle that. To me, that takes life experience, therapy, and not being on the internet all the time, especially displaying, like, being a personality on the internet. And it naturally makes you want to always stay who you are, which makes sense. You know, we all want to be who we are, but what you perceive as who you are, which gets outdated over time, that stuff goes away. And, you know, yeah, sure, people change as influencers as well over time, but there's a certain point, especially when they get deep into one thing, it starts to really entrench them. And, you know, on the influencer side, you're being watched. You're being encouraged to be a certain way. So it's harder for those people to have, like, true inner critique.
Well, we're kind of getting
2
there.
days ago, you said I wasn't, but also for a year.
You're repeating yourself.
Well, I am, because you haven't answered this question.
I have literally answered it probably 2 times. The reason that I'm saying you're anti-Semitic is because how you responded to my question at the beginning of this interview.
Ethan, for an entire year, you called me a virulent anti-Semite, a rabid anti-Semite.
Never did.
You did. You did.
You
went back and forth.
I have actually went back and checked.
You on it.
I had said that you spread anti-Semitism and stuff, but I never called you an anti-Semitic. I went back and checked.
So
You're
I was
lying.
just simply spreading anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difference.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
List, is about Habibi, not Sabr. You're conceding to the framing? Yeah, we're not conceding to anything. I don't want to even talk about the tier list anymore. Stop it. Okay.
Okay, let me ask. My turn. Do you think it's appropriate to accuse? Do you think it's appropriate to accuse any Jewish person you disagree with of working with the ADL?
No.
Here, for example, is someone using it anti-Semitically.
Are you saying that Ethan Klein and ADL in unison?
Hasan, let me finish. You're getting ahead of yourself, buddy.
Yes, I do. I do think that that's a valid thing to not only speculate, but also I stand on that for sure.
Hasan, I'm getting there. You're getting ahead of yourself, buddy. Here's an example of it being used in an anti-Semitic way. I'm sure you'll agree. Timeline on that doesn't make a lot of sense.
I heard you.
Who is this? What is this?
This is your fan who ran up on me on Rodeo.
Who the fuck is this guy? My fan?
Yeah. You remember?
Wait, is this the guy?
Yeah, you remember.
Wait. No, this is the guy that you claimed was my fan, right? He was calling me the fucking
there's a clip of being like, yo, I love this dude. Anyway, who cares if he's your fan or not?
No.
The point is,
Hold on.
No,
you brought this dude
It doesn't
up.
matter. I'm showing him as an example of you.
It does matter.
Okay, fine. He's not a fan. I don't care.
You brought him up. Wait, what do you mean you don't care?
If I brought him up, Hasan, if I brought him up, let me finish my point.
He's not a fan of mine.
Save
why
it.
did you make it seem like that person was a fan of mine then?
Let me get to there, okay? You asked me.
No,
it's my turn to ask a question. Just because I brought him up doesn't give you the space to interject.
Is it because he rolled up to me and tried to fucking clout farm? Is that why?
Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
I was very clearly disturbed by his presence.
Hasan, I think you know where I'm going, and I think you're scared. Yeah,
can you answer the question? Why did you falsely claim that this fucking random dude who does not like
that you're his favorite person in the world? What do you mean?
Wait.
All right, Hasan, here you go.
All right, so we, I drew a 7 of cups for Hasan, and then I drew a justice card, inverse justice card for Ethan. I want to do one more drawing, but I think this, like, when Ethan said the thing about Hasan being scared, that resonated very much with me. And now that Hasan is at a 7 of cups, this is something that maybe, what I was talking about before with the mindset, the pursuit of being progressive, I would think, it's good. Sometimes, if you have a severe problem with your personality, right? If you have a severe problem with your personality, you're probably going to want to fix it somehow. But you don't know how, and, the ego is naturally going to be very defensive. But if you're a progressive person, inherently your value is to eradicate bigotry from your psyche, right? And the way that I explained it, I feel like it's reasonable to see how this conversation between him and Ethan, that is going to take 5 hours, and that was originally, bringing up the 4 swords a lot, the swastika sword. I think that kind of conversation was very necessary for someone like Hasan. It's a very necessary part of internal growth. So the goal would be to get to the Queen of Cups. Right now, Hasan is at a 7 of Cups. Inverse justice, I think it really shows that right now he's lacking. He's not lacking it. I think he has a very warped sense of justice right now. I think he's letting it get to his head because he doesn't understand the complexity of bigotry on a psychological level. He doesn't understand the complexity of this issue to people who are on the Palestinian side. He probably isn't very heavily into like leftist theory that maybe Hasan is. I would say Ethan is probably someone who is a liberal at heart, but is still like new to leftist ideas. He's aware of them, but as far the depth to them is probably more abstract to him. While Hasan is at the very least like he's consumed a lot of this more deep into the left way of thinking and the theory and the arguments have been made, and he's from the Young Turks, which is very into like using leftist ways of looking at the world and applying it to everyday politics. Ethan is likely, he seems a little bit more laser focused when it comes to the issues. I think Ethan is in the right here, but just not for this, for the reasons that he thinks he is. He's just like naturally helping Hasan see the errors of his ways, but not in the best way. He's getting Hasan to, at the very least, see it. And whether it's good enough for Hasan to properly get the lesson out of all of this, that's hard. That's very hard to say. But this is a stepping stone for Hasan on a deep psychological level.
Here we go. You wanted it. I got it.
I'm so sorry.
I love you.
I'm so sorry.
I love you, bro.
I love you, bro. You're the GOAT.
You're the coolest guy in the world, bro.
Wow, how crazy.
Look gay now.
I'm fucking. Is this another hysterical delusion?
Yes, it is, and I'm gonna explain to you exactly why. Because
wow, dude, I love you. You're the GOAT, bro.
We spent a good deal of our time in the encampment. If you watch the unedited full live stream, we spent a good deal of the entirety of the encampment running away from him because he kept trying to ask me dumbass fucking questions.
Okay, but that's got nothing to do with he's a fan.
Listen, for his own
Hasan,
dumbass
please.
podcast.
You're derailing this, and I need to.
I'm not derailing it. It's not called derailing. When I'm telling you, I was there, and I'm telling you the situation.
Very good.
You are nefariously making it seem as though this person is a massive
fan
of mine.
Play the clip
He was just
again?
trying to cloud chase.
I'll play it again. You know, I'm fucked.
You can play that clip again.
Oh my God!
Bro,
I love you, Hasan. Can I give you a hug?
Can you play the clip where he openly admits he doesn't know who I am and asks people around? Because that also
You're my hero, bro. I love you.
You're the coolest guy in the world.
You're the coolest guy in the world.
Hold on, I think I look gay in that one.
I think I look gay in that one.
3, 2,
Ethan.
1.
Ethan.
Yes, sir.
Ethan.
You okay?
If you think he was a fan of mine, why'd you call him a Sneeko fan when you interviewed him?
Because he's both. I mean, surely there's crossover.
Oh, there's a crossover.
Do I need to play the video again?
Okay,
I'll do it again. Fuck it.
My producer and my camera op, March. My producer and my camera op, March,
I'm so
was
sweaty, bro.
there.
I'm so sweaty.
And he's in the chat right now.
You're my hero, bro. I love you, bro. You're the coolest guy.
Ethan.
Hold on, I think I look gay.
Listen, he might not be a fan, but you can't accuse me of being delusional for saying that.
You are delusional.
Okay, very good. I'm delusional. Let me get to my point, please.
I mean,
so I'm not even asking you to endorse this guy. I'm just simply showing you.
I don't endorse him.
I know you
and
don't.
He's not a fan of mine. So why did you claim that he was a fan of mine? Because he fucking
play it again.
clout chased.
I mean, I feel like we're running in circles.
Clout
I'll play
chasing
the
at a
clip
fucking
again.
Palestinian encampment? That's why? That's all it takes for you?
No, it was when he said, "You're the GOAT. You're my hero. I love you."
He didn't know who I was. He was just saying that so he could fucking ask for
He
an interview for his
recognized
podcast,
you.
for his POA podcast.
Okay, who cares? I don't care. So let me move
now
on.
you don't
do you
care.
want to talk about this for 2 hours, or do you want to actually have a conversation?
Wait, well, hold on. You can't just say you don't care all of a sudden when you look like a fucking asshole for falsely claiming that some random person who stalked you is a fan of mine. You said he was a fan of mine I believe in,
I lied.
one of your videos.
I lied
you
about him being a fan.
Of mine, and I was sending harassment your way.
Yes,
Don't you think that's a big point of contention? Don't you feel like this is a big point of contention?
I concede. I want to show you an example of.
Do you see my side of this though?
I think no. You're being
a
dishonest.
random Sneeko fan comes up to me.
Random Hasan fan comes up
chase,
to you,
and wants the clout chase, and you turn around and you say that he is a fan of mine to prove a point, to make a false point to imply that I'm sending people to harass you.
That's not what I implied.
That's appropriate.
That's a total lie. I have never accused you of anything of the sort. That is an outright horrific.
You did not imply that this person that was a fan of mine was actually harassing you.
Yes. Now, that's a big logical leap, Hasan, from he's a fan of yours to you're sending people to harass me. That's fucking insane. And by the way, I mean, you are a liar. You know that, right?
Did he not harass you?
Bro, what are you talking about? Did you send him to harass me? No.
Did he harass you, and did you imply in your video that he was a fan of mine?
Go ahead. When you're done, I'll wait.
Leading the audience to believe. Here, we have a clip, by the way, Dan, if you want to play this supposed fan of mine, since you guys are playing clips over there.
By the way, this was a while ago. He turned on you when he saw that you support trans rights. I know. He spoke ill of you.
No. Even before he actually meets me.
I'm not even mad. I don't care about this guy.
No, well, seemingly you care enough about it that you brought him up here and you used him.
You didn't even let me explain why I'm showing it.
You used him in the past to act like I was sending hate your way.
Bro, you're terrified because you know where this is going.
I have no idea where this is going. This has been a journey.
Well, how about you let me fucking speak, and then we can figure out. We can take the journey together.
Can you play this clip though?
So this clip is just an example. Not that you're endorsing him. Not that he's a fan.
Can you play? Dan, I sent you a clip.
I passed it along. It's out of my hands.
It's the
first
introduction of this character onto the stream where he's like, "Who's this guy?"
I'll play it. Yeah.
Okay, so felt like that was a good place to, because that was the second time, right? That Hasan or that Ethan said, "You're scared of where this is going." Before I get to that, for most of that first point that Ethan was making, we had an inverse four of wands and an inverse fool. What Hasan was saying, I mean, Ethan even kind of conceded to some degree. I think he just wasn't making a very good point or something. I think it gave Hasan a little bit of false hope in how this was all going. And then for that final part that Ethan was talking about, I think Ethan really wants to scare Hasan right now. And Hasan, I think is a little scared, but, I think he's holding on to a lot of what he relies on, which is, his own people, his own world, where a lot of Ethan's points are just laughed at naturally, whether they're good or not. They're naturally laughed at. Or every time Ethan makes a bad point, Hasan and his side are are just kind of like doubling down probably on this is the way that they see him. They see him as an inverse fool, a literal fool. You know, it kind of explains itself, right? And this might just give Hasan a little bit too much comfort. It might be that, you know, the people that he surrounded himself with have somewhat given him this way out when it comes to this issue. If Hasan cared about his friendship with Ethan, then, you know, the interest of all of his friends would matter more, including the people who he's trying to currently appeal to. He might want to appeal to both. He might see that it's necessary. But I think his allegiance is a little bit more to his current people who aren't there with him to support him or anything. You know, it's just him versus Ethan. And this is a long debate. Ethan might be literally like channeling the reality that, yeah, Hasan's afraid of what's to come. Maybe not really for the reason that you think. To some degree, yes, the reason why you think that Hasan's going to be exposed to some degree. But I think really what Hasan is worried about is just having to deal with you alone for 5 hours and just like either one gets the other on being a piece of shit and the other gets the other on it being a piece of shit or being stupid or whatever. Like, it's just a contentious conversation through and through. There's not really going to be much breathing room except for when Ethan acts funny, which Hasan, you know, you even see that Hasan has a moment of laughing at Ethan's joke. That might be, you know, like, that might be Ethan's only way of adding a little bit of breath of, you know, a little bit of tension release. I think Hasan is a little too serious in a different way. I think Ethan takes the topic more seriously and Hasan takes himself more seriously. That tension, I think, is, well, yeah, you can see it. Or you know, let's just keep watching.
Yeah.
Pothead or Potman. Is that it? Hey.
I could be on. Are you guys doing interviews? I'm Palestinian. I know I look Jewish.
No, we're just streaming.
Israeli. I look like Israeli.
We're just the guy. Normally the answer would be yes, but he's busy right now.
What are you guys doing?
You're not there.
We're just streaming.
It's live stream.
Oh, live stream?
Yeah.
Good.
You're not even in this clip, bro. What are you talking about? You're not even present.
Later.
You're out.
What?
You're out playing with swastika swords or
Yeah.
something. You're not even in this clip.
Dude, why aren't, chat, I think he's showing it on his side. You're not seeing the clip. Yes. Yeah, he's
It's really
showing the clip.
okay.
That is the first introduction of this character onto the broadcast, and he doesn't know who the fuck I am. He just sees cameras and goes, "Oh, I would like to do interviews with this person who is famous."
Yeah, I would say, like, when he said the swastika sword thing, I was thinking to myself, oh my god, am I going to draw another 4 swords? Am I gonna, is this really going to happen? But no, we got an inverse 2 of swords, which, you know, for me at this point, it's a little business as usual. I'm going to draw on these cards for the rest of it, but I had to mention that 2 of swords thing. It was just funny to me. I know you probably should better record the cards that I'm drawing, so you see that I'm not full of shit or whatever, but whatever.
It seems that was the whole point. The reason why I showed you that is because he was never a fucking fan, and then when he saw the full extent of my viewpoints, he started calling me the F slur. He's a Sneeko fan.
Hasan, in that clip, he doesn't see you. You're not there.
Ethan, he is a clout chaser and
Fine,
not a
bro.
fan.
I don't care. Who cares? Let me ask you a
Well, I
question.
do care because
okay, very good.
I do care because you have made an inference.
Oh my
that is
God,
erroneous.
dude. You are
have
dragging
made
your
an
feet on this
inference that
topic,
is-
bro. It's getting ridiculous. Can we
You've made
please
an
move
inference
on?
that is ridiculous.
This clip you sent
and
didn't prove
also
me wrong
false.
at all. You're not there. And you were never there, Hasan. Okay, let's continue, please.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is an example of someone who I think is anti-Semitic. You probably agree with me on that, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. He's not a fan of
Yeah,
yours.
I think, no, I think that guy.
Yeah.
That, I mean, from what I've seen, any number of different things I've seen from that dude, I think he's like a right-wing dating coach or something.
Yeah, he is. Dating Money 101, baby. Like and sub. All right, so here he is using the ADL. He accuses me of being in the ADL, and I'll play it. Operation?
Okay.
I don't know, but I heard you survived it, and I heard you survived the Holocaust.
That timeline on that doesn't make a lot of sense.
I heard you're in the ADL, bro.
The ADL? No, I'm not. All right, so he says, I heard you're in the ODL, bro, which, like, obviously is, you know, I perceive that as anti-Semitic.
I don't think you're in the ADL, Ethan, if that's what you were going to say.
Well, you said, and I'll quote a tweet that you made. Okay?
Yeah.
Go ahead. You said, I'll quote, he worked with the ADL to make Zionists a protected class on Twitch. Now, that is an outright lie.
I don't think it's an outright lie.
I worked with the ADL.
Over it,
sorry. I worked with the ADL.
It is interesting that, Hasan got inverse 8 of cups right before this point was being brought up. I think it's not good when someone is able to pull something up after you just denied something. Even as a form of rhetoric, it's not good when you say, no, that never happened, and then someone's like, oh, well, what about this? Whether they show you something that's bullshit or not, it gets you on your toes. It makes you a little nervous about what they're about to pull up. Then you have, once again, you're an influencer where a bunch of people are watching this. So now you're worried about whether they're going to interpret what Ethan does and how he frames it as truth. And I think that's the way Ethan is going to try to approach this.
ADL? What does that mean?
Yeah, as in like worked alongside. I don't think you're in the ADL.
Oh, that's what you meant when you said I worked with the ADL.
Oh, yeah. I mean, before I dispose it, keep in mind, we had an inverse Knight of Wands and then an inverse Chariot. I mean, that's sort of what was telling me. It was like, it doesn't matter if what he's about to say is kind of like bullshit or doesn't really mean anything. It's the way he's doing it is going to give him a little bit of leverage even on a psychological level. In that, conversation, there is psychological warfare going on, and the only hope is that you don't give into it, or you do your best to defend yourself while still trying to be fair. But especially a conversation like this, I mean, any little thing that Ethan does, I mean, it's with the mindset that also there's a lot of people watching.
I worked beside them, just incidentally together. You didn't mean that I worked with them privately to get people banned? Of course not.
No, I do think that.
Didn't you say you choose your words very carefully?
Alongside the ADL.
You just told me briefly ago, you choose your words very carefully, Hasan.
Not always. I'm famously...
Okay, we're walking that back. Sometimes I speak out the side of my mouth when I say you work with ADL. So. Here you are again repeating the lie with Steiny on video. Go ahead. You had time to...
I'll actually try to draw on this. I mean, he said choose your words very carefully. That is a rhetorical way to get into someone's head. Whether you have the right to say that or not, when you say that to many people, that puts them in a defensive mode. It is a very aggressive thing to say. Choose your next words carefully, because it is a threat. It's a threatening way to speak to someone. But he's doing it on when it comes to the issue of anti-Semitism. Got inverse sun for that, right? Choose your words very carefully. It's like he feels like he's about to expose Hasan. And Hasan, I kind of feel is not aware of what's going on. Even though, and if he did, he would be doing much better in this situation. But I think I think Ethan is getting to him. I think Hasan doesn't know how to argue or talk to someone like Ethan when there's a disagreement going on.
Really come after me when he knows I'm not anti-Semitic and making these inferences that I am, and like partnering with like the ADL and
partnering with the ADL. You want to unpack that one there, buddy?
Yeah. Again, partnering with the ADL. That is precisely what took place. I have
never spoken to the ADL, so what does that mean?
I'm not saying you directed the ADL
to take action. Do you know how silly you look?
Well, actually, you know what? I am kind of saying that. I am implying that you directed the ADL to take action.
Well, that's a defamatory claim that has zero proof. And frankly, it sounds like a little Jewish conspiratorial.
If I thought that you worked for the ADL, I wouldn't have said you worked with the ADL. I would have said you worked for the ADL. Now, what's interesting to me, of course, about this is that
I do not work with the ADL.
For these bans.
Hasan, I do not work with the ADL.
You were a part of the mass smear campaign.
That is not working with the ADL. Would you say that?
Falsely
I got nothing to do with the ADL. Blame Frogan for doing a racist fucking panel at TwitchCon that became a viral story, independent of me.
Panel, Ethan. Just like cracker is not an anti-white term, except public pressure clearly works on Twitch, and they make erroneous bans when they don't want people coming after them.
Here's Frogan repeating the same lie that you heard from you.
Pressure on numerous instances.
This is what she learned from you.
Everything in your power to push people to bully and harass me, including weaponizing propaganda organizations such as the ADL to get me banned off Twitch because I made a joke.
So she said I weaponized the ADL. You said I partnered with the ADL. You said I worked with the ADL. But you didn't mean that I spoke to them. You just meant that we were magically skipping along and happened to just, without even seeing each other, just working together in perfect harmony and love. And by the way, I'm pretty sure you're implying that I worked directly with them on this.
No, I don't.
Okay,
think
you doubled down on it. You said that you do believe that, and I just want to let you know that is a
No, I don't think you directly work with them. I think your goals are aligned on this. Yes, and
but then for Mr. Precise words, say that. Don't say you're partnered with the ADL. Do you understand? You said partnered with the ADL. Me, a Jewish man, you accused without any evidence at all of being partnered with the ADL. You're now trying to rewrite history and say I said you were working besides them. You are a liar.
What are you talking about?
You are a virulent fucking liar.
Ethan, did you or did you not take ownership over the bands?
I think, yeah, I might have. Does that mean that I'm working with the ADL?
Ethan?
Hey, Hasan, can I ask you a question? Are you working with the Neo-Nazi Party of America? Because they're also anti-Zionist. No, seriously. Are you working with the Neo-Nazi Group of America who's also anti-Zionist?
Ethan,
do you work with them? Are you affiliated with them? Are you partnered with neo-Nazis? Or do you guys happen to have the same goal and are completely related?
Here's a parallel for you. Have I taken credit for a neo-Nazi anti-Semitic incident that took place? Because if the
the way these conversations are going, I mean, I am on 1.25 speed. I think it is necessary. I don't want to slow things down just so I could draw more cards. I mean, I could draw cards all day, right? But the point being is that these guys, they are so similar. And in the minor differences that are so explicit, they make such an explosion between these two people. And also, it's why they keep fucking up points. You know, they keep getting each other on stupid things as opposed to, like, having, like, a real intellectual debate about this whole thing. Like, remember that the whole point is that they're supposed to be debating Palestine and Israel. But they're still just at each other's throats about who these people are and what they do. It has nothing to do with Palestine and Israel. They're not talking about the Hamas and the 67 border and October 7th and 48. You know, they're not talking about Palestine and Israel. They're just talking about each other. We're an hour into this debate. I'm sure they might get into some of it, right? I mean, the one thing they had was over the Norman Finkelstein clip. That was barely anything. So anyways, we drew a reverse magician and then a fool. Well, we drew a reverse magician when it seemed that, yeah, Ethan seemed to be getting Hasan because Hasan was not really doing that well, but he had a page of pentacles. So really all he had to do was pay attention to what Ethan was saying and get him on the words that he's using. And then we have a fool versus an inverse King of Swords, which makes perfect sense at this point. I would say, yes, now Ethan looks like a fool. His one advantage is he's able to, I mean, right now he's being a weasel, and we'll see where that goes. You know, I'll start drawing for that when I continue the video. But right now, you know, he is the fool, and the fool isn't, like, generally a bad card to draw unless it makes perfect sense in the moment that you are a fucking fool. You know, I don't mean to call Ethan a fool, but I think he definitely looks a little bit like a fool in that one moment where Hasan was just trying to create a link between him and Ethan, or between Ethan and the ADL. He wasn't implying that there was a close relationship. When Hasan made that certain point, Ethan, whether he was in the right or not, addressed it in a way that seemed like he's trying to downplay the fact that Hasan got him. Ethan was so emotionally charged on a particular topic, and then for Hasan to say, but you are this thing, right? And then Ethan's like, yeah. You know, and then, like, Hasan's like, oh, there we go. And Ethan is not really responding to it. That sounds like, oh, yeah, you're a fool. You fucked up. You know, this is the second time Fool showed up for Ethan. I'm not going to say that Ethan is I'm not going to replace the Wheel of Fortune for Ethan. You know what? No, I think no. I think it makes sense to see Ethan as the one who's running the show. However, he is also at times going to be a fool. I know the Fool card would be definitely showing up again throughout this debate between the two of these guys. I can't imagine. They're both kind of fools, right? Who is the bigger fool? You know what? I'm gonna hold on to, I guess, like, I don't want to get rid of it quite yet. And the reason, and of course, inverse King of Swords. I think, Hasan has Ethan up against the ropes right now, but it's a hollow victory, in my opinion. I think Hasan's strength against Ethan is not really enough to outweigh the strength against that Ethan has against Hasan. I think they're equals, really. Not equal in strength, right? If they had an arm wrestling contest, Hasan would win. If they had a dick measuring contest, if they have a personality off, I think there are going to be times when Hasan's going to stick out. And then there are going to be times when Ethan sticks out. So the fool, to me, is what dictates this entire fucking relationship. Not the card itself, but as a representation. These are two fools who are hopelessly in love. I think they're both fools. And I think that's what represents this whole conflict between them. They're talking about, sometimes it's stuff that matters, right? But the way the way these guys are about this whole thing, it makes it seem ridiculous, and it makes me wonder: do I want to do this for 5 hours? I think so. Let's keep drawing, right?
The answer is yes. If neo-Nazis actually engaged in an action, neo-Nazis actually, not like your fucking hallucinations, something that we all agree. Like neo-Nazis did an anti-Semitic incident, and I took credit for it, and I said, this is awesome. I'm glad that it happened. I made numerous videos so that they would do this. Yes,
I was on the tier list, bro.
In saying that,
it was literally targeting me. I was on the tier list. Why wouldn't I respond?
Ethan,
I don't have to be a member of ADL to respond to someone harassing me. Are you fucking
to my words,
dumb?
please. Listen to my words.
I'm trying, but it's just fucking lies and filth and empty air.
From your perspective, my association as a 10-year fighter of anti-Semitism, my association from your perspective with anti-Semitism is like something that is so laughable that I don't even know how to describe. Like you're like, oh, it's a swastika sword, but then you admit that it's not a swastika sword. That's how loose this association is. But on the other hand, I can't say that you have worked alongside
That's not what you said.
In getting
you said I'm partnered with. Partnered with. You are lying. You are rewriting. You are not taking accountability. You said I'm partnered with the ADL.
Ethan, I can't take accountability for your hallucinations.
Do you think that the normal, reasonable person watching that will infer that we were just coincidentally working the same, or that I was working directly with them?
What do you think a reasonable person
the average person would conclude from saying I'm
bands?
partnered with the ADL?
What do you think a normal, reasonable person would infer when they hear you?
Bro, you are
Ethan
literally
Klein,
gaslighting me. It's so
videos
obvious what you
demanding
meant.
the bans of Twitch streamers, and then after they are banned, you say, "I'm glad that they got banned. I take credit for it." What would a normal, reasonable person infer?
I was on the
from
tier
that?
list, dude. I was responding to them. It wasn't like a fucking It wasn't like I went out of my way to get them banned. I responded to them. I was on the tier list. There's been 3 instances, I think, of, in my opinion, very credible accusations of anti-Semitism. You've accused me of hallucinating all 3 now, which is very convenient.
No,
and also,
because they're not credible. We are not in agreement. These are not credible allegations of anti-Semitism. These are hysterical hallucinations of a person who desperately wants all of his critics to be anti-Semites so he can feel comfortable in the unique position that he has created for himself.
I'm so glad this is on record. So you think?
Yeah, I'm glad you. Yes.
So you think that you think a reasonable person would hear you say he's partnered with the ADL and not think that I was working directly with them?
I think a reasonable person will hear your own words and think that you probably worked directly inside of the ADL.
Have I ever mentioned the ADL?
Even make that inference.
Have I ever mentioned the ADL?
You took credit.
Did I ever mention the ADL, Hasan? Answer the question.
It doesn't matter. You took credit for the ban that the ADL pressured.
Do I ever mention the ADL in my entire fucking career? Actually, I mentioned them once, but I didn't even know what they were, frankly, if you have the thing. Did I ever...
Yeah, it's a clip where you are saying, I did that shit. I'll fucking take credit for it. You know who did that shit? The ADL did. You are taking credit for something that the ADL did. I'm not even making that inference.
Well,
You're
they attacked
saying,
me.
Which one do you think? What do you think the average person would think in this situation when you are saying that you did that shit and it's the ADL's pressure that caused these people to be banned for such a ridiculous,
being silly. I don't care.
Not anti-Semitic thing at all.
I was being silly. They attacked me. I responded. Do I know who?
Silly.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Okay. Well. All right, I guess we can move on.
Do I think I got them banned? I don't know. Who knows? I think that
you got a Jewish content creator alongside multiple Arab content creators banned off the platform for 30 days.
There's a reason they call them token, my friend.
Actually reacted.
You spend time being a token, you're gonna get spent.
But it was just silly. Fuck them.
You want to cash in on your Jewish friends anymore? Or can we move on?
Am I what?
Would you like to cash in on your Jewish friends more, or can we move on?
Cash in on my Jewish friends.
That's right. Do you know any Jewish people that aren't anti-Zionist?
Yes.
Who?
I'm not going to review. I don't want to. They're normies. I don't want to dox them.
You're lying. You're
No, I'm
surrounded.
not.
Yes,
I'm
you
not
are.
lying.
You're absolutely lying.
Dog, I live in West Hollywood. You think I'm not around Zionist Jews? What are you talking about?
Do you pass Jews on the street? Yes. Are you friends with?
No, I'm friends. Yes.
Okay.
I
Very
am.
good. I don't believe
And
you.
they've treated me with much more dignity than you have, as a matter of fact.
Well, yeah, because they're not on the
Surprisingly
receiving
enough.
end of
We
an
can have a more
insane
normal
fucking
conversation.
harassment
I can have a more normal
campaign. Why would
conversation with
why
them
wouldn't they?
than you, seemingly.
All right, so you think that
They would most likely
just
laugh
to recap
at all of this.
Just to
they're
recap here,
watching.
so we can move on. I mean, did the random Zionist Jews that are treated you so kindly, did they have CPS show up to their house or skulls sent to their house?
Ethan, I didn't do that.
Ethan.
I didn't say you did that.
I don't know why you're bringing that up.
I know you don't, but
that
you're
has
acting
nothing to do with me.
Part
I'm
of
not
your
in
shtick,
support of
Hasan, is
that.
acting obtuse when you're caught in the corner.
Okay. All right. You've dominated the conversation so far. I think we should get back to some stuff that
I agree. Let's just summarize.
Okay.
Look, can we just get back?
I'll let them wrap it up, but these drawings, especially there's some key moments where some of these showed up, especially with this inverse 8. This CPS situation is something that Hasan needs to take seriously and approach with a good head on his shoulders. And I think his problem is that right now he's not capable of doing that. This is going to be a tough situation for him, and I got the inverse 9 of Pentacles for Ethan around the same time. Keeping the Fool card up here in mind, when Ethan is winning, it doesn't really mean that he's like doing something that really is slamming Hasan down, even if it should. And on the other hand, Hasan is really not prepared to deal with some of these ideas. Now, we got the 3 of Wands. If I were to just put these down in order, we got 2 of Cups, followed by an inverse Page of Cups. I think Ethan, and it showed, Ethan was getting very hot. He was getting very angry over this, having to do with the ADL. And in some ways, I do think both of these guys actually had decent points amidst the fucking chaos and the complexity of their perverse psychology. So Hasan, when this first thing was coming up, I think initially we had a tower for Hasan. I do think, when Ethan said, you're scared of what's coming. We're talking about a lot of transformation here, folks. Alchemy, the Temperance card that had come up a lot and is no longer coming up once you are like, whoa, look at that. Maybe I should have put the Temperance card up because it kept showing up, but it was interesting, right? It's about creating something different. When you play video games and you combine elements, you use fucking, I don't know, dog shit and horse tits and you create gold, right? The Tower is a fucking harsh transformation card. And of course, this is a harsh transformation. So you know what? I think this deeply resonates right now with Hasan. I mean, of course, the cups, right? I mean, 6 of Cups to 7 of Cups with a Queen of Cups in mind. That is a very Tower life for an individual, for a human being, right? We have a complex neurology. Our brains are fucked up. There's a lot going on in there. And there's a lot going on outside of us as well. Hasan is transforming before our very eyes. This is a very transformative moment. I mean, if he took a microdose of mushrooms, this could be very very positive experience for him. But unfortunately, he is probably sober and is dealing with Ethan in the way that Ethan is. So this thing that he needs to desperately work on is being delivered to him by a very difficult personality. We had the 3 of Wands for his little, I think if Hasan was a little bit more understanding of what's going on around him, if he was more capable of taking in the reality of his situation and the reality of this conversation, he would be able to better understand where this is all going. Ethan is kind of telling him, he's saying, you're scared of what's to come. 3 of Pentacles, I don't even remember when I fucking drew that. Did I drew that afterwards? That would make sense. And then we, of course, that ended with the inverse strength. Oh, right. And, we had Ethan with the Lovers this doesn't mean these guys love each other. I mean, maybe they once did for like a split second, right? I didn't watch The Leftovers. I don't know what that's all like. In some way, Ethan, what he might take out of this type of situation, like with the ADL thing and the fact that, you know, he used the term partnered, he used this, he used that. It's like Ethan was right there trying to say, I think you know, I mean, I think you this has somewhat to do with the swastika sword thing as well. Like Hasan refusing to acknowledge the basic problem that Ethan has with the words and with the actions of Hasan. It doesn't have to do with Hasan's politics. It seems to have to do with what Hasan actually does outside of his politics. He's saying certain things that aren't true, and Hasan sort of had Ethan against the ropes in one way, but he still didn't use the right terminology, and it was terminology that at the very least implies a little more. Once again, I do think that's a hollow victory for Ethan, and Ethan is really unaware of the problem with his own way of framing these things because of his minor victories and the swastika sword thing. And so I do see this as a tower for Hasan right now. As for Ethan, you know, he's kind of more of the fool, but I think they're both fools in this situation. I think they're a couple of fools who got into an argument and have completely burned the bridge between each other as a result, and have even destroyed their own public perception as a result.
It's quick. It's very quick.
Like, you
I just want to put a cap on this. Just a cap.
So what is the cap
doing the
here?
thing that I'm so
And,
critical of you on.
Partnering
okay?
with like the ADL. And
You said so. Just to put a cap on this, and we'll move on. You said I am quote partnered with the ADL, which you now claim was just a was. You didn't mean that I was working with them. You mean that we had the same goal. Okay, very good. We'll see how that plays. Go ahead. What's your question?
Okay.
You okay?
It's interesting because you're currently doing the thing that I'm criticizing you on, where you are looking at a situation that you recognize is a genocide, and your only consideration in your own.
I'm going to, you know, I'll leave this next part for part 3. So we ended that conversation with a magician for Ethan and 2 of cups for Hasan. I think it would help Hasan to just acknowledge what's going on and to kind of just like hear out Ethan on these points, because with the swastika sword and now with this using terms like partnered with ADL, those are some charged terms to use, or that's a charged term to use. It may not mean anything by itself, but also with the swastika sword thing, it's like, okay, now we're creating a pattern of dog whistles. If you're not paying attention to the point that that Ethan is making, you're only relying, I guess, on one. I mean, you know, he was getting a lot of community cards, a lot of cards with him connected to others, with a community specifically, relying on his community. I think that is that is currently his shield, is that the community is fine with him being subconsciously dog whistly, maybe consciously, but at least subconsciously being kind of dog whistly, or at least that's the picture that Ethan is painting. Whether it's 100% true or not, it seems that Hasan really needs to properly address these little moments where Ethan says, okay, but what about you saying this? Show the clip. Blah. It's there. You got to properly address it. We'll see where this goes in part 3.